Welcome to the Redeemer Network podcast, where we talk church planning, church health, and multiplying churches for the sake of the gospel. To learn more about the Redeemer Network, visit redeemernetwork.org. All right, well, welcome back to the Redeemer Network podcast. My name is Jordan Elder. I serve as the president of the Redeemer Network, and it's a privilege to get to host these conversations. This season, we're talking about what we do as a network of churches. We have three priorities as a network. We train, we fund, and we support. Last episode, we talked about the work that we do to train church planners, and today we're going to talk about our work to train replanters. I'm joined today by Marco De Leon. Marco is the pastor of Storehouse Community Church in McAllen, Texas, and he also serves the network as our director of church renewal. Marco, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, dude. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. Thanks for jumping on. It's your first Redeemer Network podcast.
It is. Oh man, I feel like I've made it. Like, let's go, man. I've heard all the voices, and so this is what it feels like.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Travel to the big city of Round Rock.
There you go. Yeah.
Before we get started, I've just had a thought. By the way, shout out to Kyler, producer Kyler, back here. You guys can't see him, but he makes this happen every week. If you need help or want to pick somebody's brain about how to podcast, Kyler's doing such a great job with the Redeemer Studio here, and he loves to serve other churches and pastors. But the reason I want to shout him out, this guy's getting married this weekend.
Let's go. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a few days away from wedding day. So thanks for being here, man, on wedding week to help us record this today. Yeah, that's another story. Yeah, he almost got blown up at his house apparently this morning before his wedding. So
it's a typical Thursday.
Glad he's here. Yeah. Well, Marco, I was thinking about how we could get started on this episode. Normally we start with some kind of sports talk, but from, as I've gotten to know you over the years, you don't really do sports ball very much. So here's what I was thinking. Is there a better beard in the Redeemer Network than Marco's beard? I'm glad we're actually on video now so people can see this. Is there a better beard in the network?
I'm sure there is, man. I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Maybe Russell Cowan. Russell's got nice beard going.
Nice. Yeah. That guy looks like he has a job.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good beard.
Man, if I grew a beard, it would take me like the rest of my life to even get anywhere close to what you got going on there. So,
yeah.
Impressive beard game. Okay. Well, we're going to talk today about church replanting and church revitalization, how that's become part of our work together as a network, and even what we do. But before we get into that, I would love to hear you met Jesus and how God called you into ministry. So give us a bit of a flyover. Tell us some of your story.
Yeah. So I came to faith when I was about 21 years old. I didn't grow up in the church, and I had a pretty narrow view of the Christian faith. And I had a friend, I was working for the city of McAllen, and I had a friend who had just come to faith, and he began sharing the gospel with me almost daily. And he was inviting me to this Bible study, church plant, and I was frustrated and annoyed with him and his evangelism. And so one day he tells me, "Hey man, if you come to church with me this one Sunday, I'll stop sharing the gospel with you. I'll stop bugging you about Christ." And so I said, "Yeah, man, that's great. That's the best deal I've heard from you." And so I ended up going to church with him. And so we met at the time at 7 p.m., some youth pavilion behind another church. And that was my first experience in a church. So I'd never set foot in there, much less heard the gospel preached, at least. And so, went in there, and as soon as the pastor gave the amen, I bounced. I was done. I fulfilled my end of the deal. I'm not going to hear from him. He called me the following day. Just to express gratitude, and I think the Spirit was already at work. Wow. And as he said, "Hey, thanks for coming," I laid out just all of my sin before him. And so I was very wide-eyed because he was also my boss. And it wasn't just sins against others and the way that I was living. I was also stealing significant amounts of money from him.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was really nerve-wracking. Anyway, by God's grace, he forgives me, lets me keep my job. And that night, I think I met with him and the pastor at the time. They encouraged me to keep coming. They shared the gospel with me again, and yeah, by God's grace, in about 2 weeks, I came to faith in Christ. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So that's awesome. And not only is he loving you, sharing the gospel with you, but he's modeling the gospel for you,
yeah.
showing you forgiveness. Yeah. Are you still friends with that guy? Do you still see
Still,
him
yeah,
on a
he's
regular
out in
basis?
Hutto now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow,
So we
that's
hang
incredible.
out from time to time.
It's incredible. Okay. So came to Christ in your adult years. How did you end up in ministry?
Yeah, I feel like coming to Christ at the start of a church plant with a bunch of other guys that also didn't have a church background, felt like ministry was kind of hand in hand with everything that we were doing. And so I didn't know that churches had to set up or get torn down. I didn't know that there were teams. I didn't know any of that, and neither did any of us. And so we kind of just dove in headfirst to serving our church. And then from there and over time, that's when I started to learn a little bit more about my giftings and what I was good at and what I could serve in. And so early on, I believe the Spirit was leading me to pastoral ministry, and I was really nervous about that whole thing because it felt as though the only people, in my mind at least, the only people who knew how to be pastors were people who knew what they were doing. And and so that was not me. And so I didn't say anything for a really long time. I didn't tell my pastor about it. I didn't share with any of the guys because I just thought it was a fluke. And then shortly over time, I began to just share a desire and interest for pastoral ministry, not just serving in our teams, which I think are wonderful and needed. But yeah, the Lord led in that area, and over time, got way more involved in ministry, and eventually was, by God's grace, installed as a community group pastor, and then through a series of events became an executive pastor, and then now we're here.
Wow.
Whereas I'm the lead pastor at Storehouse McAllen, and then I get to serve on staff with you on the Redeemer Network. So it's been this huge journey of, seeing the Lord do really cool, gracious, and loving work in a sinner like me.
Yeah. How many years has that been from the time that you kind of came on as community group pastor to today?
2014,
Okay.
I think, is when I was installed. Yeah, that's when I first started.
Wow. And so your story has kind of been community group pastor, then executive pastor. I think when I first met you, you were serving as executive pastor then. I remember being on a Zoom call with you about something. I don't even remember what that was. It was many years ago.
Yeah.
But then it transitioning into the lead pastor role at the church, and then you guys replanted.
We replanted,
the church that you're at now, Storehouse, which is what is even kind of led you into this role with the Redeemer Network as director of church renewal, really working with our training efforts to help those who are revitalizing or replanting churches. So you've done such a great job since you've stepped into that role recently, and it's been really fun to see you take an idea and really bring it into a ministry strategy and now starting to execute that strategy. And so what I want to do with this episode is just talk about that. A lot of people don't know much about what we're doing. And so I want to talk about it, let you share some. So let's start with why. Let's start there. Just why is doing this work of resourcing, supporting, training people for the work of replanting, revitalizing, why does that even matter?
Yeah. Well, I got a couple of reasons, and I'll try to be brief. But one, it matters because healthy churches matter. And when it comes to the work of replanting or the realm of replanting and revitalization, there are a lot of men, a lot of pastors who are doing this kind of work and are isolated. They're under-resourced, they're under-equipped, and they don't know that this kind of resourcing is available to them. There are men in our churches who would do really well as replanters, or individuals who could, who the Lord could use to revitalize churches, and don't know that this kind of work exists. Needed, or that it even exists. As I look back, even now, almost a decade ago, when we replanted Storehouse McAllen, I didn't know of any other churches who had been doing this kind of work, not because it was brand new and it was the coolest thing. There wasn't a lot of content. There wasn't a lot of resources out there for pastors. There was one podcast that I came across that you can send in a question through like an answering machine, and then maybe they'd answer it, and they did. and they told me everything that I was doing was wrong.
Really helpful.
Yeah, super helpful. It was the only time I finally got some help, and here I am being told that it's the worst thing to be doing. So anyway, those are two quick reasons. But on top of that, we see pastors and churches who are struggling. We want to see them experience renewal, vitality, health, not just for the sake of health, but for the sake of multiplication, for expanding and advancing the kingdom. And so we want to come alongside those pastors and those churches to Lord willing, see that come to fruition.
Yeah. From my seat, I'll tell a little bit of the story of how we went from being primarily a church planting collaborative to even starting to think about, God, do you want us to be involved in this work of replanting, revitalizing? We had our lead pastor retreat. This probably was in like 2018. And we spent that entire lead pastor's retreat talking about some research that I had come across from an organization called the Pine Tops organization called The Great Opportunity. And that research was essentially, hey, what does the church need to do in order to stop the bleeding by the year 2050? So it was like, this is our great opportunity over the next 30 years from 2020 to 2050. Now, this research came out before the pandemic, and essentially what they were saying is that we need to double the amount of churches that we're planting. And the reason we need to double the amount of churches that we're planting is because youth who are growing up in the church are leaving the church, and they're projected to continue to do that, and denominational churches are declining and dying at a rapid pace. And so this was 2018, and the research said then that we are in North America, we're planting 4,000 churches per year, but yet 3,700 churches per year are closing their doors. So we're really only netting 300 churches per year. Yeah. And so we talked through some of that at that retreat, and I remember guys being like, yes, we need to keep planting churches more aggressively, but man, we gotta do something to help some of these dying, plateaued, declining churches in our cities and our towns stay alive. We need those churches too, and we need them to be growing in health. And so that kind of started, snowballing a little bit, and we started praying about that. How do we do it? And then we connected with David Miller, and David Miller has a really cool story. Maybe we'll do another episode with him or just let him tell that story. But David took a church, was a Methodist, declining Methodist church that his mother-in-law was the pastor.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
and then a campus, a fledgling campus of an area mega church that was dwindling, and then like a Pentecostal charismatic church.
Yeah,
and
Hispanic church.
Yeah, Hispanic church.
It was all three.
And he like merged those three together and then replanted it as Abernathy United.
Right, yeah.
And what a cool story that was. And then David really started to see opportunity to do replanting, revitalizing, and he started connecting with people, and he connected with the Redeemer Network, and the Catalyst Collective was formed. And we're working with them. And then long story short, merged it all together and said, the Redeemer Network is not just going to plant churches, work to plant churches, help our churches plant churches, but we want to help see dying, declining churches get healthy. Yeah. And we want to be a service to that. Yep. Because we need to not only keep planting churches, but we need to see established churches healthy and on making kingdom impact. So that's a little bit of it from our side. And then you joined the network, and you had replanted, and you have a passion for this. And so, there's such a need. It's so important for us to be in this space. I think about a town not too far from here that had a denominational church that had an incredible building right in the center of town that died. The building went up for sale, and it's now a boutique hotel. Yeah. And it just like, town needs that to be a church, and we need that church building.
And there are more and more of those stories
so many
all
of
around.
Those. Yeah. So this work is so needed. So, all right. So let's talk then about what exactly we're doing. That's part of your role. You were tasked with come on and like really let's formalize a strategy here. And so when we say we train replanters, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? What are we doing as a network?
Yeah. Generally, it means that we're coming alongside pastors and leaders who are doing the work of revitalization or renewal in their churches and training them, supporting them in the efforts of seeing them grow healthy or become healthy so that they would then multiply. That's the general way of looking at it. And I think one of the things that's fairly unique about my role is that we desire to serve the bride of Christ broadly, in that I get to work with different theological traditions. pastors and leaders who are doing this work of renewal. So it's a really interesting endeavor and dynamic, and I can tell you more about that. But yeah, it gets really interesting. Specific to your question, when you look at our strategy, we're big on funding, training, and supporting, and so we do this in a number of ways within the track of replanting. And so one of the first ways that we do it is through church health workshops. We started doing these last year to kind of test them out. And then over the last couple of months and into this year, we've started to rework them. And the whole point of these church health workshops are to gather pastors, leaders, and their teams to not just give them information, but to generate interest on the realities of what's happening within our churches, in our cities, because we don't just need bigger churches, we need healthy churches. And so it's to give them that, but it's also our primary means of recruiting them, which leads into the second thing that we do. And so we have like a replanting residency. And so the residency that we created and beta tested last year is a 10-month cohort for pastors who are doing this work of renewal. And I say renewal because when it comes to replanting and revitalization, there are so many subcategories within that, and they can get broad really fast. And everyone's story is a little different and a little bit more unique depending on where you're at. So anyway, so we do this residency for 10 months for pastors and leaders who are doing the work of renewal. So those right now tend to be the main two areas of how we're training replanters and identifying replanters. From there, we'll do some other things. We do one-on-one coaching calls with them through the residency. We do some consultation to hear how some churches are doing and whether or not we can come alongside and offer any kind of help as they're working through, thinking through, praying about some work of renewal.
Good. Yeah, I was able to look at some of the curriculum that you've put together for these workshops. Man, so good. Like, really coming in and saying, hey, we're going to kind of pop up and host these one day, right? These one day workshops. And if you're out there and you want to come and talk about church renewal, come here and really walking through like what is a healthy church and looking at talking through some of our health metrics as a Redeemer Network the content is so good. And then from there, I guess, if there are any of those people that attend these workshops that then want more training, more coaching, stay connected, stay in collaboration, then there's an entry point into the formal residency program.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. During the workshops, one of the things we have individuals do is we came up with a health assessment. So they kind of get an idea of where their church is at in real time.
Okay.
And so we might do some follow-up conversations at that workshop. We might get them into the residency a little bit faster, or at least get them on track to get on the residency. So especially if they're there with their teams, they get to see where they're at, but then they also get to ask questions again, because replanting or revitalization can be really broad. Sometimes there are areas where, man, the Lord is just growing them because of an area of weakness, not so much because of an area of unhealth. So it's really helpful to receive clarity on workshops like that.
Yeah. So almost like coming to the doctor. Like, hey, does your church need to go to the doctor? Like, like, hey, your blood pressure's a little high. Your deacons are a little unhealthy.
There you go. Yeah. I'm gonna start doing these with a lab coat. Yeah.
That's right, man. Yeah, but fun, but not painful. Fun.
Yeah, but not painful.
Meet some other people and get some good content. And
yeah, it's good.
That's great, man. I love that. Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah. Well, I know that this has already been bearing fruit. It's pretty new, but it's already been bearing fruit.
Yeah.
Give us a couple of stories. Like, how have you seen God using our efforts as a network, these workshops, the residency that we've beta tested with a few leaders? How have you already seen it bearing fruit?
Man, I'll give you a couple. And so as I was thinking through this the other day, the first one that came to mind is when we first ran the residency, we did it with 3 residents down in the valley.
Okay.
And man, that was such a big deal because they gave 12 months of their time. We tested it with 12 months before reducing it to 10, essentially following the school calendar. Anyway, it was really fun, but it was really humbling to see these men give 12 months of their time, of their life to something that we're developing as we're going. And so that was already humbling and fun, but the one that sticks out of those 3, his name is David Carizales, and he's the pastor of Sendero Community Church in McAllen. And a lot of these guys, if not all of them, fit the current trends of individuals who are replanting or revitalizing, in that they are bivocational. The majority of them don't get paid anything from their church, and if they do, it's a small stipend.
Yeah.
So most of them are doing another job, or they have businesses.
So really like
Yeah.
co-vocational, like
Yeah.
volunteer pastors,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly,
Like I'm doing
exactly.
2 jobs.
Yeah. And so David, he has 3, where he pastors the church, he runs his own AC cooling and heating business, and then he does refrigeration on the side.
Wow.
Which is like not part of his business.
Wow.
And so, man, over the last 12 months, it was really, really cool to see him grow from being a pastor who was really scared. So part of his story is the pastor who was there prior to him, and he was just a faithful member in the church. From one week to the next, was called to Indonesia and handed David the keys and said, "Hey man, I think this is yours." And so David is just trying to figure it out, trying to be faithful, trying to love the congregation well. Never preached before, but loves the Lord, loves his congregation. He's like, I got to figure this out. But at the same time, he has all of these jobs. And so that's a little bit of his background. And this one day we're at our church, and he's working on our commercial ice maker. And so he's got this open, and I know nothing about this, man. And he's telling me about these compressors, and he's telling me about these wires, and his phone is going off. And as his phone's going off, he's answering it, and it's his son who works with him with the AC business. And he's saying, "Yeah, Junior, no, go ahead, clean those coils, do this. Okay, yeah, I love you. Anyway, these compressors need to be changed. These wires need to be changed." And then his phone goes off another time, and it's a woman from the church. And he's like, "Hermana," and so he's talking to her, and he's praying with her. He's like, "Gloria a Dios," and then he hangs up, and then he goes back. And so I'm sitting there watching this dude go between 3 jobs in the span of a couple of minutes. And I was just floored and humbled. It made me feel like, who am I, that I would even get to do this. But here's a guy like that. He hasn't even gotten to his sermon yet.
Yeah.
And so to see him be that guy and continue to be that guy, but grow as a leader, as a shepherd, and as a theologian, as someone who's like, I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to do a good job as a pastor of my church, and to see him begin to install like a membership process, begin to preach through books of the Bible and not just what comes to mind a couple of days before. So to see him become a little bit more organized, but a lot more pastoral in his care, was really cool to see.
Yeah.
And man, he's my guy, man. I love him. I loved just seeing that happen in his life over the course of those 12 months. But then you got other guys who are going to come into the residency. And I think of another one named Stephen Dorman, I think. And he is going to be the lead pastor of a church down in Brownsville, called Ecclesia Community Church. And I don't think, if I remember his story correctly, I remember talking to him at our workshop, but I don't think he had ever had a pastorate. The church wasn't doing well, and they've kind of handed him the keys also. Like, hey, we think you'd be good at this. Maybe you can turn it around. And he shows up to our workshop not knowing what to expect, while at the same time just lost. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And so to hear about the residency program that we have, and to hear about how we can help him, all of a sudden there was a little bit of life in him. And so again, going back to the fact that this work exists, and that there is training and support for guys like Stephen or David, and they not know about it, and then come to know about it, is breath of fresh air to them.
The thing about it, and I know several guys, very similar stories of just like all of a sudden they're faithful men, faithful leaders, faithful, kind of core families in a church, and all of a sudden they're just like, hey, here you go. We think you're the guy. And they're left with the choice of, well, am I the one that's going to like shut this thing down, or am I love this church. I love these people. I love this city. I love this community. And so, and those guys are willing to work multiple jobs. Those are the same guys that are willing and are hungry for the training and the support and the resourcing. They just don't know it's available. And so to be able to make those connections and It's so huge. And that's just like one sample size of what's happened in the Valley, much less all the other parts of our state and country where this work is needed.
Yeah, man, it was really encouraging earlier this week to be in San Angelo for one of our workshops. And so I got to meet a gentleman by the name of Jim Stanley, and he's the pastor of Angelo Bible Church.
Okay.
And he's 77. He's been at the church for 38 years. And he was telling me about, after taking that assessment, seeing that they're coming out of revitalization and into some health, but learning, I don't know how to go to that next place of health. And for him to say, man, I'm 77. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not dead yet. So I could still do this work. And so to see there be hope and passion in Jim to continue the work of revitalization, to get to the place of multiplication. As we began talking about church planting, he got really excited as far as like, how can I begin to invest in that? What would it look like to cast vision for my congregation in a way that we've never done before. And so it's really cool to either have these conversations, have some of these experiences, and just see the Lord beginning to do this wonderful work in this effort of renewal.
Yeah. So you just did a workshop in San Angelo. Were you in
Odessa?
In Odessa, doing one in Odessa. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, hey, look, I want to take a next step, either like, hey, I want to come to a workshop, or like maybe there's a leader in one of our churches that goes, I don't think I'm a church planner. I don't think I'm a start something from nothing kind of leader, but I think I could get trained and pastor and shepherd and teach and move a church toward health. Or maybe somebody's listening and they're like, hey, I'm David. I'm like pastoring a church on my phone while I'm doing another job. And I want help. If someone's listening and wanted to take a next step, like what would some of those be? Just like what's next?
Yeah, I'd give 2 quick next steps. The first one would be visit our website for a number of reasons. And this falls into those 2 reasons. Visit our website. So 1, you'll see where we're having the next workshop. And so those workshops come as a result of where we see saturation and relationship. So we really lean into our network churches because of their relational connections in their cities and in nearby cities. And so we do these workshops there and have a whole host of individuals or leaders and pastors come out to that. So visit the website to learn more about the workshops, but also to see where they're being hosted. Maybe we're going to be near your city or town. And so this spring we did 3, with San Angelo being the last one. And this fall, we're looking at doing another 2 to 3, definitely in the Panhandle, West Texas, and then again in the Valley.
Okay.
And
if one of our pastors is listening, they're like, hey, I want to host one of these in Austin, or I want to host one of these in Rockwall, or in wherever, they just holler at you.
They just holler at me.
Okay.
Yeah, they can holler at me and we'll get it going. It's real plug and play.
Yeah.
We get to show up and we dive right into the content and make ourselves available to whoever is attending that and walk through the assessment and all that stuff. So that would be that. And then the other thing is, and in addition to that, even if some of our own network churches know of other guys who could benefit, not just from workshops, but conversations on, because I met with a couple of guys in San Angelo, and they were telling me that they knew of other guys in other cities who would benefit from the workshop but can't make it out. Could they schedule a call with me? And I'm totally available for that. So the website has my contact information and all of that stuff. So getting connected with individuals or pastors that way is also one of the next steps.
Great. Awesome. Such good stuff, man. Yeah. I know we're going to talk more about this at our conference coming up in October here in Austin. We'll talk more about both church planting and church renewal, and have plenty of breakouts and workshops. And so excited about the work you're doing. Thankful for you. Thankful for our churches that are hosting workshops and care about their community. One of the things we say all the time is, how are we going to multiply more churches? And then we need our people to own their turf. And so own your turf. And I love hearing that. I love that our guys in San Angelo, that Redeemer Odessa, that they're like, hey, look, we want to host some workshops because we know some other pastors around here who could benefit from this. And so love that so much. Grateful for you, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate the work you're doing. And thanks for listening. Thanks for joining in for this episode. We've got some more good stuff coming down the pipeline. And so we'll see you next time.